My guest today has been a personal trainer for over 20 years. He's also been both a coach and competitor in the NPC bodybuilding organization. He owns and operates a private gym, Original Workout, where he personally trains over 40 clients on a weekly basis. Some time ago, he decided to combine his love of primal nutrition and passion for bodybuilding to create an online community known as Ketogenic Bodybuilding, which features a Facebook group that's over 8,000 members strong and growing daily. He has also started a YouTube channel where he tells it like it is in his morning muscle and rant videos, as well as providing workout videos, nutrition advice, and more. I'm a member of his community, have been for a while, and I'm super excited to have him on the show. Please welcome Rob Goodwin. Rob, man, I'm glad you could be on the show. Welcome.
Dude, it's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. This is exciting. I couldn't think of a better thing to do on a Saturday morning. That just shows you how dull my life is. So the fact that you're able to bring so much excitement and enjoyment into my life, man, I truly appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Oh, well, I tell you, man, I've been excited ever since we talked and you agreed to come on the show. I've been excited. I've been a big fan for a long time. I've been a member of the Ketogenic Bodybuilding Facebook group for probably a good 2 years now. And I just absolutely love what you got going on. Without a doubt.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yes. All right. So let me ask you, first question I have is, what was it that drew you into the fitness industry in the first place?
Well, the same for everyone, right? It was about a girl, right?
Okay.
I mean, isn't that the way every good story starts? It's about a girl, or if you're a girl, it's about. Seriously though, I was in my early 20s, and like many people in their early 20s, didn't have a clue, didn't have a real true direction on where my life was going, and had just been involved in a breakup. Shocker. And was just kind of searching for, what my path was. And I was working a dead-end job, not really sure what the direction was that I wanted to go. And lo and behold, I got approached by this little jacked bodybuilder where I was working at the time. And it was a funny story because he's like, well, you don't look like you belong here. And I was like, well, you don't either. And we immediately hit it off. And he told me he was a competitive bodybuilder. And this job was just how he made money to, pay for food and supplements and gym memberships and, competition fees and whatnot. And he's like, hey, man, you want to go work out? And I'm like, well, I've got nothing else going on. And I was kind of searching for something. And I'm like, hey, why not? I haven't really worked out since high school. I played a little football, but not to any great degree. So I went to the gym with him, and, here's a guy who's a competitive bodybuilder, and he proceeded to completely beat my ass into the ground in successive days. And the great thing about it was, or the bizarre thing about it was, is I was drawn to that intensity. I've always kind of been into intense things. I'm into intense music, and, so just the dynamics of it and the intensity of it and the aggression of it, at least that's the way we were doing it. I was immediately drawn to it. And you know how it goes the next day. You can't walk. You're using the freaking handicap rails at the bathroom, and, you're freaking dying, and you're wondering, what the hell's going on here. And the bizarre thing is when he approached me again, he was kind of expecting me to say, hey man, you go screw yourself. I'm never doing that again. And the first words out of my mouth was, when are we doing that again? So that's kind of how the whole thing started. Well, I was so ignorant at the time in terms of bodybuilding and strength training and nutrition, but I've always been kind of a introverted geek, and I think things through, very logical and rational. And so I immediately got absorbed in it, and it became an experiment for me. Luckily, as many people do, but most people don't, is I realized quickly that I kind of had the genetics for it. So I was very fortunate to find out, and even my partner, the bodybuilder, was like, man, you were responding so quickly to this. And long story short, I went from about 170 pound, guy to a 210 pound guy easily within a year. And then ultimately within another 6 months or so was able to, cap that at about 230. And the cool thing is thank God for my buddy Melvin, that was his name, that brought me into it. My introduction to bodybuilding was hardcore, kill yourself, give it all in the gym, blood, sweat, and tears, You know, I literally lived that lifestyle of you go squat, you know, everything you can, you go puke, you come back, you put on another plate, you do another set. And I lived that, and I got so absorbed in it, I just started to live it, breathe it, and it became, you know, it consumed me. So in my usual fashion, I absorbed everything I could on the subject, and then decided I would seek out the advice of other great coaches in the industry. And back then there was no internet, you know, so you didn't look up somebody on Google or YouTube or whatever. So you would literally drive countless miles in different states to go to seminars and camps and workshops, and you would go knock on doors of gyms and bother the people that, you know, you aspired to be like, to get as much information as you could. And so that's kind of what I did for literally a decade. I was so absorbed in the bodybuilding world. And the weird thing about it, John, is, and a lot of people don't believe me when I tell them this, at no point did I ever have a desire to compete. As much of a fan of bodybuilding, I went to all the shows. I had my favorite bodybuilders that I looked up to, like other people watch the NFL. I watched bodybuilding, and I never had a desire to compete. And because I love the experiment of physique development so much, that I liked being on the back end of it. I like the experimentation aspect. So I wanted to be the trainer. I wanted to be the coach. I wanted to get somebody and walk them through that experiment of molding them and shaping them and sort of turning the knobs and flipping the switches on these people to see how we could truly bring out the best in their physiques and the best qualities in their physiques. And what I always say is my goal, even today, you know, almost 30 years into this game, is my goal is to find the most direct path to bring out your absolute genetic best. And if you look at this as trying to reach your genetic peak, or in other words, the best with which the tools that God gave you, then you'll be thrilled with that. So that's always kind of the path. You don't compare yourself to others. You know, when I was coming up in it, I knew that I wasn't going to look like Mr. Olympia. That was a whole nother world away from me. However,
yes, indeed,
it's still the industry of bodybuilding. And even to take that a step further, like with my Ketogenic Bodybuilding Facebook group, people often come in and say, well, I don't know if I should join that because I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm like, whoa, understand, you know, we're not talking about competitive professional bodybuilding. We're talking about if you're in a gym or you're in your home, you're lifting a weight and your goal is to put on lean muscle and to reduce body fat and to reach your greatest genetic potential. Hey, guess what? Welcome to the club. You're a bodybuilder. So that's the way I look at it. So really, in other words, all are welcome. You know, everybody can come in and join the group and seek advice. And we got great people. And, you know, you got to understand, only about 2% of my clientele, which between the gym and online is nearly 100 people, only about 1 to 2% actually ever compete or even have a desire to. So most people are just regular people gutting it out in the gym, trying to reach that genetic potential. And my goal is to sort of be the architect to drive them there. And, you know this as well as anybody, we get that satisfaction of, you know, guiding these people and molding these people and being some kind of a mentor to them. There's no better feeling in the world when you have a client step on stage or just take that photograph and say, I did it. You know, this is the greatest feeling of my life. All the hard work is paid off. Thank you so much for walking this path with me and playing a part of it. And you know how that feels. So I think we can both relate to that. So I know I kind of went off. I went off the rails there in terms of how did I get into this, but you know, that's sort of the progression. I got into it, realized that, you know, I was kind of a hyper responder with growth and I was kind of built for this stuff. And, you know, so then I took what I learned and the joy and the pleasure that I got and the passion, almost addiction that I got. And rather than want to be the guy under the spotlight, I wanted to project that to others and see what the result could be. So when people talk about, you know, control groups and studies and research, well, you and I are both doing that every day with people we can look in the eye and really develop a relationship with. So working with these people in the trenches of the gym floor and intimately online and speaking with these people literally every day, sometimes several times a day, you develop this unique relationship. And if you're good at what you do and you have a real passion for it like we do, You can pull so much out of these people, and it becomes the most rewarding job on the planet. And I'm just, every single day I wake up and I thank God that I'm able to do this. And now with this whole crazy internet thing, we can, as we're doing right now, we're expanding it further and reaching more people. So, hey man, we're blessed, right? Yeah, so I hope that kind of, you know, that's the 10-cent version of my 30-year story. So I hope that makes sense.
That's complete. No, it does make sense. And it's so much of what you touched on. I find similarities in my own story and my own journey. My journey came from a perspective of transformation. When I finally found the gym, I almost died from a diabetic coma. I weighed 405 pounds. Oh, wow. And, you know, it was like, I realized that something had to change. So me progressing through everything I went through, you know, losing all the weight and getting in shape, it kind of bred a passion inside me to want to help other people, because I know that obesity, you know it as well as I do. Obesity is a pandemic across the world. Absolutely. And it's killing more people than any other one disease. You take any of them combined, and obesity is still at the heart and killing more people than anything else.
It's never looked at under the same light as other metabolic disorders, diseases, and that's unfortunate. So
Exactly. And you know, fast forward to now, and I do this for a living, and you're right. I get to wake up every morning and know that I get to reach out to over 20,000 members in the Dad Bod Transformation Group and help them on a daily basis. I get to help my clients. I actually just got tapped to be the official nutrition coach for the OCB Mountain State Classic, which is an OCB bodybuilding competition that happens here in West Virginia, because they want to debut a body transformation division. And the promoter reached out to me. She's like, you know, I look at your transformation and I look at your passion for what it is that you're doing, and I didn't see any other choice to bring in to help these people transform their lives and be able to step on that stage. And it's not about getting imposing trunks or anything like that. Some of those people are still going to have a ways to go in their journey. But the fact that they can get up there and share their story, you know, that's what's going to motivate people. At least that's how I look at it.
Well, and to thinking back and adding to my original story, you know, I said I never really wanted. Oh, by the way, I said it all started out because of a girl. I ended up marrying that girl with.
I was going to ask you that.
Now we got 4 kids. You know, so there's a happy ending. There's an even greater happy ending to the fact that, you know, the stress that we went through a breakup ended up being a blessing, because it led me down the path that ended up become my life. And then shortly into that, we reunited, married, and 4 kids. And here's the cool part. I'm a freaking grandpa. Okay. I've got a nearly 2-year-old grandson. So, you know, hashtag grandpa bod my ass. You know, it's become such a wonderful story, and I feel so blessed. And then I also spoke about not wanting to compete, that it was about working on the other end. You know, I do compete now, but I did my first competition at 46.
I was going to ask you, because I knew you competed.
Yeah, I mean, I was so involved in the industry on the other side. I was at all the shows. I was backstage. I was working with competitors and talking to coaches and interacting with judges at a high level and consulting with some of the greatest minds in bodybuilding. Never stepped on the damn stage. And in my true, this is just the way I am. I'm one of these people that I'll just be sitting there sipping on coffee and say, hey, I'm going to do this now, and completely change gears and reinvent myself. And literally in 2014, I think it was, I was kind of sitting there doing what I do and loving my life. And I thought, you know what? It's time to do the stage thing. I'll do a show. It just happened like that. And I'm like, all right, I start tomorrow. I start training. Now, what do I know? Well, I know a lot. So let's put it together. And I mapped everything out. Literally like 10 months, almost mapped out to the day of what I was going to do. And it worked out well. I placed second in the open, and that's against guys half my age. And then did a show in 18, and then just did another show in 19, and was very proud to win my class, you know, first in the 50 plus. And it's always a great thing, because I wasn't really expecting to, but I won the open class in the heavyweight division. And again, that's against 20-year-olds, you know, potentially is all ages.
Yeah.
So being able to wake up and say, hey, not only do I love my life, but I got to kick a little bit of 20-year-old ass, along the way. It's kind of a cool thing. So to all you guys out there and all you women out there, in their 40s and 50s, and you're old like me, you can still kick ass at any age, do whatever you want to do. You can start right now. I don't want to be a cliche, but you literally can start now, no matter where.
You're right.
You know what? Health and fitness is such a crazy thing. It's almost like a bizarre investment that nobody should want to turn down. Meaning, if I told you you could take, $10 and in 1 year have $1 million, you'd say, hell yeah, take my $10. Well, what's so bizarre about, health and fitness is you can take somebody that has abused themselves or neglected themselves for literally a decade or more, 2 decades, 3 decades. And I can look them in the eye and promise them, if you stay the course, if you trust the process, we can reverse 3 decades of abuse within a year. And some people, John, unfortunately, will look at you and say, a year? Oh, well, that's crap. I want it to happen in 30 days, Right. And I think that's one of the things that the industry has been a black eye, is all the marketing and the hype and the misinformation of, you can do anything in 30 days in the programs. But if people sit and think about it, you can take any level of abuse for the most part or neglect, and you can literally make a 100% transformation within a year's time or less. I mean, that's the greatest investment I can ever think of. And who would turn that down? Yes. Sadly, many do. But
because they don't believe it. They don't believe it.
Exactly. But we have to keep reminding people anything is possible. Hey, today is Saturday. Tomorrow is Sunday. Start freaking tomorrow morning. Hell, start tonight.
Yep.
And then take that first step. And because a year from now, you're going to wish you started today. And it just baffles me that the way our culture, inundates people with so much dogma and misinformation. And it's in the keto world. And I know we're going to talk about that. I mean, it drives me mad at the indoctrination and all the dogma and misinformation that leads people to think it has to be this way when it doesn't. There are many, many paths to the end goal.
Right.
And you and I both know that. So it's about guiding them. And, we take this fork and we take that turn and we turn this knob, we turn that knob, and ultimately we find our way. So, it is kind of mind numbing the way the whole industry works. But at the end of the day, for those dedicated few that trust the process and take that step, it's an amazing thing that can happen. And when it happens to you, you never regret the effort and the sacrifice that you put into it. So,
no, absolutely.
Again, I'm going down a weird path again, but you've kind of got me.
You're fine.
If you can't tell, I love this shit. Right? Right.
Yes, you and I are passionate people.
I apologize, everybody out there. We went off the rails again. That's what I do. But
hey, it's like this. I knew what this podcast was going to be like because we are both so passionate. I mean, it's like me myself, and what you just said, I want to back up a little bit on it's people don't realize just starting the process and making some changes, how much that can actually affect what it is that's going on. From the time that I had my wake up moment, okay, within a year, just by changing, and because I used to drink Mountain Dew by the gallon, brother. I mean, by the gallon, all day, every day. And it's like, just by giving up, and switching to diet sodas and starting just to pay attention to what I eat, not exercising, not doing anything else, just making those changes, I literally lost 100 pounds in a year.
Amazing.
You know what I mean?
And
and that's what people don't get. When I got to the point where I got off of diabetic medicine, because I found out I was a type 2 diabetic, I got off of diabetic medicine, and that was my whole goal for starting to train in the gym and do everything. That was my driving force. And then I was looking at my doctor the day she told me, she's like, you know what? She said, your A1C is like somebody who's not even pre-diabetic. You've lost all this weight. You've done pretty good in the gym. So, you're good to go. And I was like, well, no, I'm not, because I had a goal and now I've reached the goal. Now I need something else. I need something else to push me forward. And she was like, well, you're a pretty big guy and you've done fairly well for yourself in the gym. She's like, why don't you try bodybuilding? Now, keep in mind, I was like 45 years old. And I looked at this woman and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. What business do I have, training as a bodybuilder, planning on getting into some kind of competition? And she's like, no, you don't realize people compete into their 60s and 70s and everything else.
Absolutely.
And I was like, you know what? Well, then that's what I'm going to do. And I've had some stumbling blocks along the way. I actually just last month had a full knee replacement.
Wow.
So, and I got cleared Wednesday by the doctor that I can go back and start busting ass in the gym. So that's exactly what I'll be doing come Monday morning. But, it's like people don't understand that every step that you take on your journey, once you start the process, every step that you take, you see changes. And when you see those changes, you want to see more changes. And are you going to run across times where you have those plateaus? Absolutely. But that's the times where, if you're fortunate, you have a trainer like yourself or like me that can guide you through those plateaus, maybe change up your macros a little bit, change up your workout, whatever the case may be, to get you to where you need to be. And having said that, I personally found keto about 2 years ago. And the next question that I actually had for you, because I know I followed a little bit, I read some stuff on your website and whatnot, and I know that for the longest time in your journey, you followed the standard bodybuilding diet where you were eating a lot of carbs and stuff like that. And then you switched to keto. Why did you switch?
I was first of all, initially it was because probably in the early 2000s, still training at a high level and even branching out into some other things at that time, because I'm always looking for that next intense thing. And a client of mine got me involved in some cycling. So I thought, hey, this is something cool. And funny story about cycling is here I am, this 230-pound bodybuilding, meathead. And he puts me on this, 18-pound bicycle and he says, let's go for a ride. I'm like, hey, why not? It sounds like fun. So we go out, we do this 8-mile ride, which to a cyclist is like going around the block. And I go up this tiny hill. Well, it wasn't tiny to me, but here I am lugging my big ass up this hill. I get to the top. I fall into literally a ditch on the side of the road, throw up, climb out of the ditch. My client is expecting me to say, screw this. And in my usual fashion, I pulled myself out of the muck and I said, I'm in. This is awesome, because it was another incredible physical challenge. But along that way, right about that time, and I was getting into my, I guess my late 30s, and through all the strength training and now doing some endurance activity, I noticed some pretty severe inflammation issues going on. And I thought, this can't be right. How can a guy so strong and so fit and so active and so, dialed into what he does every minute of the day be suffering from all this joint inflammation and pain? And then in my usual fashion, I dove into that. And that's when I started to really look at the ancestral health model. And at the time in the early 2000s, the whole primal paleo kind of a thing. But to me, I took it to such an extreme degree. And when I was digging through a lot of that research and noticing about hunter-gatherer style diets and the benefits of healthy fat and what the reduction of carbohydrate can do in terms of reducing inflammation and giving you greater mental acuity, which is something else I was noticing. I didn't feel quite as clear in my head as I suspected that I should be. And then when I started to look at some of these modalities in the primal, sphere, if you dig deeper into that, this one word kept popping up here and there, and that was ketosis. And if you look at throughout the course annually of what our hunter-gatherer ancestors went through, there would be pretty long stretches of time, depending on the geography in some cases, where our hunter-gatherer ancestors would achieve a state of ketosis. And this was this really cool defense mechanism for when food might be scarce. But then you start seeing that word pop up. So then I kind of, went off down another rabbit hole and started looking at some of the great benefits of being in a state of ketosis, the metabolic advantages to that. And oddly enough, here I am, this bodybuilder guy, and I start noticing that a ketogenic diet had become extremely popular in what they call the ultra endurance community. These crazy people that run up mountains for 100 miles and,
Yep.
that insanity. Well, these guys were finding out, and these women were finding out, that if you reached a state of dietary ketosis and became fat adapted, and this just was so logical to me, it was like light bulb over my head moment. If you have this endless supply of energy on your body already in terms of stored body fat, and even the leanest among us have enough stored energy in terms of body fat to sustain us for very long periods of time, you know, these runners would determine that, you know, we could subsist on fat and protein and the body fat that we're already holding to sustain us, which meant long bouts of endurance without having to rely on a constant influx of exogenous carbohydrates. Does that make sense?
Right.
So I was so intrigued by that. So this is where it gets cool, because in that same, you know, so I went keto, by the way, and loved it. Felt phenomenal. And it was more of that, I'll say traditional higher fat, you know, the butter chuggers.
What they call nutritional keto.
Yeah, I played with that, and it never really made complete sense to me, and maybe it's my bodybuilding background, but so I started to delve into it. And then also at the same time, people were telling me, well, keto's great if you're a runner. Keto's great if you're trying to lose weight. Keto, but you can't train hard on it. I'm like, oh, really? Well, that's weird, because when I'm looking at the research and I'm running this through a logical, rational microscope, it would appear to me on the outset that you should be able to train very hard on a ketogenic diet, that it really shouldn't make a difference, i.e. fat is an energy source now, and carbohydrate obviously is an energy source. Now, they both take different pathways in the body on how we assimilate that energy, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it's still energy. So that's when I really started to embark on, you know, coming up with a hybrid, as I call it, to be able to use the benefits of a ketogenic diet within the realm of a hard training environment. These people that are just killing themselves in the gym, or even as much as it kind of, you know, bothers me, even like the CrossFitters or anybody engaging in very high intensity exercise, which I did. And just to be clear, I train super high intensity. To this day, I'm high intensity, low volume. I'm not one of these guys wandering around the gym for 2 hours doing 20 sets per body part. I'm 40 minutes as high intensity as I can be, pre-exhaustion, supersets, forced reps, heavy negatives, kill, collapse 40 minutes later, done. So I wanted to replicate that style of training, but still get the benefits of a ketogenic diet. And long story short, I think pretty much anybody within my, you know, sphere of influence would agree that we've done that. And I'm competing in that environment, that metabolic environment. I've got clients competing in that metabolic environment. I have clients excelling at a level that they've never excelled, training their asses off, utilizing my hybrid ketogenic bodybuilding nutritional approach. So in other words, you know, I call it, we kind of stumbled onto this DTR philosophy, deplete, target, reload, where we use carbohydrate as a specific tool. I often say, you know, there's a place for everything. You just have to find its place. So to me, carbohydrates is this one bizarre little wrench that you have in the toolbox that just loosens that one freaking nut that you might have to loosen 3 times a year, but you still need it or you won't be able to do it. So what I found is by bringing in the right amount of carbohydrates at the right times and the right amounts, you can reap the benefits from it, and then it's gone and no longer wreaking any havoc in the body. So I look at carbohydrate more as an IV drip rather than a bucket of water being splashed on you. So where I used to take in carbohydrate every 3 hours back in the 90s, and it kind of crushed me. Now I bring it in certain times and certain amounts, and it benefits me, and then it's gone. And then I'm back into a state of mild to moderate ketosis where I like to be, you know, operating in that environment. And that system just works well for me. And with anything, John, it's not how much you do or how little you do, but it's finding the precise amount required to generate the response that you're looking for. So one downside to having a Facebook group or whatever with thousands and thousands of people is everybody's looking for a blanket answer. And they get so annoyed. I sense this, but I think they get annoyed when they ask a question and then I almost always answer it with, well, it depends. We're like,
Yes.
it depends. Shut up, man. Just give me the freaking answer. All right. Quit screwing around. I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
but you can't do that.
Depends,
Yeah.
So I try to give them some broad strokes and some bullet points, but then I remind them, listen, we still need to dial this in uniquely for you. And you could ask all of my clients and you could line them all up. And Sally might be taking in X grams, and Sue might be taking in X grams, and John may be taking in X grams, and Bill this amount of grams. When I do a refeed on 1 day a week, I've got a guy named Bill that can take in literally 1,200 grams of carbohydrates with no spillover, no side effects, and walk into Monday morning lean, mean, and ready to eat nails. Where I got another guy that if I take him over 150 grams, he completely goes off the rails and it's a complete train wreck. So you kind of got to know where you fall in. So I've taken this ketogenic, the benefits, the overwhelming benefits of a ketogenic diet, in my opinion, which is not a fad to me. I've been playing with a ketogenic diet for over a decade, since 2010, and honestly was extremely low carb, even many years before that, doing what I would call almost a hybrid primal paleo diet. So the concept of training hard in a low carbohydrate environment is not new to me. I've been doing it for many, many, many years and just tweaking it and honing it. And then the ketogenic bodybuilding brand that I've sort of brought into this world was the culmination of what I felt, okay, I think we're there. I think I understand this. I've experimented with it for so many hundreds of hours with so many dozens of clients, including myself. I think we found the model that works, with the understanding that the model works, but then we just have to adjust it to each individual's unique needs and goals. But I feel confident in saying, okay, let's bring it to the masses now, because I feel like I can defend this. And you're always going to have your detractors, and let them go, let them jump the fence and leave the herd. I don't care. You can't make everybody happy, especially on the internet, because there's some asshole sitting behind the computer in his mom's basement that just wants to freaking argue for no reason. And I don't care. That's fine, because I know what works. And if I can bring in, a small group of people, like-minded individuals that can reap the same benefits as I do, then once again, like we discussed earlier, I feel fortunate and blessed to be able to, give that knowledge to others and bring out the best in people. So that is my keto journey, is tweak, hone, develop. And you get the people out there that are so to that dogma of, oh, you got to take in 75% fat, 15% protein. I'm like, bullshit. That's sorry. It's not true. Okay. I got into the keto coaching. I did bodybuilding and strength training coaching for decades. I got into coaching people on keto because they would come to me consuming 70, 80% fat, and it worked for a short period of time. And then they just became a metabolic train wreck. Nothing was working anymore. So I tweaked the numbers, and it almost always ended up being a higher protein model, dialing the fat back to adjust it toward their output, because fat, John, is an energy source. You know this.
Yes.
Too much of anything is going to store. That's still a thing. So if I give somebody more dietary fat exogenously than they need to sustain their efforts, it's going to store. If you try to put 20 gallons of gas into a 15-gallon tank, you're getting 5 gallons of gas on your feet. So that's just the way it works.
Exactly.
So once we dialed it in, I became the fix-it guy. And then the fix-it guy to, okay, now we're going to bring this into the bodybuilding, heavy strength training world. And here we are. This is where I am now. So.
Exactly. And see, what the thing is, with the popularity of keto setting in as it has, the people, the fat chuggers that are 75% fat, what they're doing is they're basing, they did a Google search on keto, and what they probably found was that in the 1920s, the ketogenic diet was developed by Dr. Russell Wilder, and it was developed initially for the treatment of childhood epilepsy. In those particular cases, in those particular cases for medical ketosis, you do need 75% fat. But if you're using a ketogenic diet for weight loss, once you become adapted, if all you're doing is shoveling fat down your gut, guess what your body's going to burn? It's going to burn the fat that you're eating, and it's not going to burn the fat that's stored on your body. And I tell so many people when they start talking to me about keto, I'm like, hey, look, it's real simple. Yeah, it's okay to eat a higher fat going in, but once you get adapted, you need to bring up your protein and dial back your fat.
Right.
That way your body can actually burn the fat that you've stored.
Exactly. And I tell people
just
listen,
don't get it.
They don't get it. And I tell them, listen, you're telling me you want to burn fat, yet you're taking in crazy amounts of exogenous fat. And then I'll ask them a simple question. Would you rather burn the fat from the 600 calories from the stick of butter in your coffee, or would you rather burn the fat on your ass?
Yes.
100% of the time, the answer is ass fat, to the point where that has become such a funny thing. I will get clients messaging me just saying ass fat, because I always ask that question. Do you want to burn the freaking fat in your coffee, or do you want to burn the fat on your ass? So if you've got body fat you want to lose, then that's the fat you want to burn first. And short-circuiting that process by taking in tons and tons of unnecessary exogenous fat is just going to short-circuit that process and going to lead to diminishing returns. So it's so good to know that, you know, we've kind of evolved, and there is a huge subgroup out there that gets that. And the cool thing about it is those people tend to do training, you know, they're lifting, or they're doing their, you know, endurance sports or whatever. And it's a more serious group. And, you know, I started out doing this with another Facebook group that was just dedicated to ketogenic diets, not the training element. And it took off pretty well. But then it kind of turned into almost like this weight loss support group, and just comparing freaking, keto cheesecake recipes and all that garbage. And it kind of went off the rails and kind of drove me mad. And when I started the ketogenic bodybuilding group, John, I literally thought like 15 people would join, and it'd be like this little group of people that we would just share information. And then lo and behold, it just freaking exploded. Yeah. And then I'm getting people, you know, right here in the sticks of North Carolina, I'm getting people from all over the world seeking out, wanting to know more about this, because they're like, I train hard and I love a low carb diet. I train hard and I love low carb. You mean I can combine the two? I'm like, yes, you can. Isn't it great? And no, we've opened up this whole universe, and I'm so proud to be kind of one of the pioneers in that. And it's, you know, it's an honor. It's a true honor. And, you know, when I find other peers that believe the same thing and practice the same thing, it's like, we have this great little, you know, unity that we're engaged in, and we're sharing it, and we're building on it. And it's just such a wonderful thing. So yeah,
it is. And see, that's the thing. And one of the things, I was a part of another ketogenic group, and they were big on lifting weights and bodybuilding and stuff like that on keto too. And I won't mention them, but I will say that one thing that you touched on earlier makes your philosophy, my philosophy, your group different than this other group. This group is like a friggin' cult. There's no other way to say it. And I'm sure, I actually think you were probably a member of the group at one time, because I thought I saw you in there. And so
I know what you're talking about. I won't name names either, but
yeah. But it's like, no, it is not based on the individual. This is how we do it. This is the only way you can do it. And if you don't do it the way we tell you to do it, then you don't need to be in our group.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I left, because here's the thing. I don't give a shit if you're talking about keto. I don't care if you're talking about paleo, whatever kind of dietary protocol you're talking about. No one protocol will be the exact same thing for each individual. So much depends on people's insulin sensitivity, their hereditary issues, whether they're predisposed for diabetes. There's all these different factors that go into figuring out a dietary plan for a client. So you can't just say, here it is, guys, this is the diet that this group uses, use it or get out. It's ridiculous.
I don't get caught up in that dogma, and it just baffles me. Listen, if you come to me and you say, hey, I'm interested in what you do, and I explain what I do, and they say, well, that sounds great, but you know what? I've been eating styrofoam cooler lids and gummy bears for the last year, and I'm jacked, I'm lean, and my blood markers are perfect. I'll say, well, then keep doing what you're doing. I'm not going to talk you out of it. I'm not going to be that guy. No, I don't care what diet you do. I don't care what training protocol you do, but I'm sorry, if you ask me what I think is a great way to do, I'm going to tell you what I think. And then I'm going to also tell you that it's not going to be exactly what I do. And we're going to have to spend some time together and kind of crunch the numbers and find what works. And, you know, I've got a couple of clients that are going into their second competition. We've got them into their first and they've done great. But I said, okay, we've been through 8 months together. Guess what? We did well, but now I know. Now I know your body. Now we can really take it to another level. And it sounds crazy that it took us 8 months to figure that out, but we're so unique individuals, you know, and everyone differs so much. You know, some people get frustrated when I tell them, the number one question, what can I do in 3 months? How much weight can I lose in a month? I'm like, I don't know.
Can I fit in this dress for a wedding in 30 days?
Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll let you know in 30 days. You know, I mean, because I don't know. So guess what? We're going to have to put our heads together, roll up our sleeves and kind of get into the trenches and get dirty and figure this stuff out. And then when you know, we're going to know. And then we can take it to another level and dial it in. And we work toward what I'd mentioned before, finding your genetic best. And whatever that is, you're going to love it. I hate it when they say, well, how can I look like Jennifer Aniston? Like, I don't know. Well, number one, you don't look like Jennifer Aniston. Jennifer Aniston is Jennifer Aniston. But I promise you,
go ask Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, go ask her. I don't know. And she's going to tell you who are, anyway, if you keep comparing yourself to Jennifer Aniston, you're always going to be disappointed because you're not her. But if you focus on, I'm going to become the absolute best genetically that I possibly can, no one has ever been disappointed with that result. But you got to get there. And it's going to take hard work, sacrifice, effort, suffering, all these words. But when you get there, you're going to be satisfied. And that's another thing. The one reason I kind of do like the fact that the word bodybuilding is in what I do, because I want to let people know right out of the gate, this is not going to be easy. This is not going to be easy. This is hard freaking work. This is sacrifice, but with great sacrifice, without it, you cannot have victory. You have to suffer to some degree to attain any level of great success. Anybody who's ever achieved any level of success in any industry will tell you it's about hard work, sacrifice, effort, and suffering. But nobody ever regrets the hard work once the goal has been achieved. So we've got to roll up our sleeves and get ready to take our brains and our minds to turn that central governor off and take ourselves to a limit with which we've never been to before and push beyond that limit. There's no complacency. You're either moving forward and climbing the hill or you're rolling your ass back down to the bottom. You're not just standing there. That's not the way it works. So for those people that I don't need to work with 1 million people, but I'll take 500 that are really ready to really dive in the trenches with me, get some bruises and a few cuts and scrapes and pull out the very best that we possibly can. I'll take that group of people all day long. I don't need to be some nutritional freaking training rock star. I don't need to be that guy. I'm happy in my little universe working with like-minded people that are ready to freaking eat glass for me. That's what I want. And they're out there. Thank God. So
absolutely.
We're in a great place. We're in a great place. It's a good time for what we're doing. So I'm very, very fortunate.
Yep. And the other thing that I think people need to keep in mind too is the fact that, everything that you touched on is true. You've got to go out there and you've got to sacrifice and you got to work hard. You got to do all these things. But the other thing that people need to keep in mind is you're going to fail.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to fail. The most successful people in history failed. Thomas Edison, he was asked one time, they said, why do you continue to try to make this light bulb when you have failed 10,000 times? And he said, I haven't failed 10,000 times. Yeah. I learned 10,000 ways not to make the light bulb.
Right.
And it's just that simple. You have to take failures, learn from them, and move on. And so many people get hung up on they have a failure, they have a setback, and they're like, I can't do this. Bullshit. Right. You can do it. You just need to learn from what happened and put it behind you.
I'm 51 years old, and I'm still trying to find my absolute way in this industry and keep evolving. You know how many times my wife has looked at me with like, what the hell are you doing, Rob? I mean, what the hell now? I mean, because we've all failed so many times, but I've learned through every failure and through every shortcoming and every setback of, okay, so don't do it that way because that's just batshit crazy. Now I know. So let's move on and let's try this. So life is that same twisting of the knobs as is with diet and training. We have to learn. And there are a few, hard and fast ideologies that I have. I have some very set ways that I think that you get the most out of your training. I've got a few hard and fast things that these are the handful of things that I really believe in terms of nutrition. But all of them to a degree are open for interpretation. I'll get a guy that will message me and say, oh, I can't believe you do that 2 sets to failure, high intensity, low volume approach. That doesn't work. I said, okay, well then don't do that. Either ask me why I think that is, maybe take 4 to 6 weeks and try it yourself. Don't just tell me I'm an idiot. You're wasting your time and you're wasting mine. But I promise you, I've been doing this longer than most people have been alive. And there is some valid, rational, logical reasons as to why I do this. And the successes have been phenomenal. So don't just say I'm an idiot. Say, hey, what you're doing is a little radical to me, but hey, I'm willing to give it a whirl. Because when people say, oh, well, yeah, but I work out for 2 hours and I do 20 sets per body part, I'm getting results. And I'll be like, well, that's fantastic. Now try this, and maybe you'll go from fantastic to overwhelmingly phenomenal. I mean, do you know? Have you tried it? I mean, let's open our minds a little bit and be open to maybe tweaking something, because I'm always learning from others. I'm still going back to books and articles from the 1970s and picking up nuggets of wisdom that have been long forgotten and maybe need to be resurrected because there's so much validity in them. And we've gotten so caught up in our own bullshit that we're not willing to look back at the past. It's like, I believe if you want to know the best way to fuel your body, don't look into the future, look way back into the past, into our hunter-gatherers, because they were some of the fittest, leanest, most productive human beings on the planet way back in the day. And we could learn a lot from our past, and we don't get caught up in that dogma. And fortunately, I think we're both in mediums now that supply us with people who have that open, rational mind that are willing to take some chances and look at a different point of view. Thank God. So I'm absolutely. It's awesome that we're both sort of, forging that path, and it's great that we've connected and we're able to feed off of that. So.
Oh, indeed. Okay. So let me ask you, because we've touched a bit on, people that are considering getting into bodybuilding at an older age. I mean, you started competing at an older age. I got into lifting at an older age. What kind of advice would you have for ladies or gentlemen, either one out there that are middle-aged or more, that would be interested in getting into bodybuilding?
Well, the thing is I often give the answer that most people really don't want to hear. And I will say, if you're completely new to it, hire a coach. But I'll qualify that with saying it doesn't have to be me. I'm not here soliciting. I'm saying, you could, wherever you are, if you're in Des Moines, Iowa, look to see if there's any really good coaches down the street in Des Moines. And if you trust that person, hire them, because I'm not going to sit here and lie to your listeners and tell them it's easy. I'm not going to be an infomercial. It's easy and works like magic in minutes a day. It's going to be a lot of hard work. If you are already living within the confines of a difficult schedule and a tough, stressful lifestyle, guess what? You're about to be thrown into the damn fire.
Yes,
but
indeed.
Again, like I mentioned, it's going to be worth it if you're ready to gut it out. But physique competition is a different animal. And I've been through it many times now at an older age, and it is the hardest thing I've ever done. However, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And the thing about bodybuilding and physique competition, the way the industry has evolved, there is a place for everyone. I mean, we've got women's bikini division, we've got men's physique, we've got classic physique, we've got in some areas the 212 division. So there's a place for everyone now. So it's a great time to say, I'm going to become my absolute best. And now I can show it off in that unique environment on stage. And the cool thing about that is you become part of that 1% of the population that's actually done it. It's a unique thing to say, I have competed in a physique competition or a bodybuilding competition. And the reason I say hire a coach or at least consult with somebody is physique competition. And all my clients find this out. My daughter found this out and she placed first in her first competition. And a lot of that had to do with, I knew of a lot of what I call the smoke and mirrors. Physique competition, there's so many X factors and smoke and mirrors that's involved. And that's what I think my clients would tell you if they were here. They would tell you, oh yeah, well, Rob tells me I have to train my ass off. So I did. He tells me I have to comply with my diet, which I did. But he didn't tell me, or I didn't know, and he did tell me the most important nuggets of wisdom about the posing, what I do 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, 3 days before the night of the show, 2 hours before the show, 10 minutes before I go on stage, little things like the tanning and the carb up and manipulation of nutrients and sodium. There's so many things that have to come together to have this perfect storm. You know, if you think about it, John, I'm sure you have, your listeners out there, think about this. My job, if I'm working with somebody that wants to compete, would be, okay, Sally, you want to compete? Oh, you've picked a show in November? Fantastic. My job is to make sure you're your absolute best that you can possibly be at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning, 7 months from now. That's not easy. You know, I'm not getting you in shape is one thing, but dialing you in to stand before judges in the equivalent of your underwear in front of 2,000 people under hot white stage lights for all the world to see, you know, that is a different animal. And it's a journey that I think you need to surround yourself with a core group of advisors that's going to help bring you in. I've been doing this for so many years. I still, oh, hey, you remember that guy that got me in to training all those years ago in 1993? To this day, when I'm competing, every Friday when I'm 12 weeks out, he walks into this gym because he's an NPC judge now. You know, he's been in the industry so long. He's a great resource. He will walk into this gym every Friday morning when I'm 12 weeks out. He will take me to the back of the gym, tell me to take my damn clothes off, and he will just look at me and say, let's work on that. You might want to tweak that. Where are we at? You look great. You don't look great. Let's dial this in. Okay, I'll see you in a week. I know what the hell I'm doing, but to have that second set of eyes that, you know, isn't completely out of their head at that moment from, you know, depletion and the training and the stress, that's so invaluable. So understand that you're going to have to work harder than you've ever worked, and you better wrap your head around that kind of schedule. But B, surround yourself with a core group of people who've been down that road, because when you are 10 minutes backstage from stepping out there, it's one of the most freaked out moments you'll ever have in your entire life. And you got to be ready to walk out there and own that stage. And one of the greatest things, when I did my first one in 2015, with all the experience I had, I wasn't ready for stepping out on that stage. And when I'm going into doing my mandatory poses, I can't see a damn thing. I'm being blinded by white light. I can only see the elbows of the guys next to me. I can't see the judges. There's no mirror that I'm posing in to make sure that I'm nailing everything. So I'm almost borderline disoriented at that point. And then I kind of feel a little dejected after the first pre-judging. I was in 2 classes, open and masters. And when I get on stage, I'm like, oh God, I blew it. You know, God, even with all my experience, I was probably the most experienced guy up there. My wife comes to the back, all 5'2" of her, you know, basically for all intents and purposes, slaps me in the head and said, get your shit in the game, man. She played back some video. She said, you need to own that damn stage. Get the hell back up there and show those judges you know what the hell you're doing. Long story short, the point I'm trying to make is attitude goes a long way. That's another X factor.
Oh, yeah.
So when I went out there for my second pre-judging, I showed that confidence. I nailed the poses. I put some aggression into it. When we went to that front double bicep, if I was a little crowded, I pushed the elbow out of the way of the guy that was next to me, showed the judges I was here to freaking compete. And it ended up working in my favor. And I had this great learning experience. But if it wasn't for other people slapping me in the face and saying, wake up, this is where you're at now, make some adjustments, get shit done, then it wouldn't have worked in my favor. And I placed second in both divisions that first year. learned enough where I could grow from that and then ultimately start winning some shows. And, you know, it was a invaluable learning experience. So I wish I had some magic answer for that question, but definitely be prepared to work harder than you ever have. Make it your priority, and make sure you surround yourself with people who have an objective view that are not going to tell you what you want to hear, but what you're going to need to hear every step of the way. So
right.
hire a coach.
And I think the other thing too is and this is something I've picked up through, you know, because I've watched countless videos where people talk about how they get into bodybuilding and stuff like that. And one of the things that I found from all the way back in the 70s, from pumping iron to now, is that you need to realize that through the process, you have to be selfish. It's a selfish lifestyle.
Oh, there's no doubt.
So not only do you need to surround yourself with those people like you're talking about that have that objective eye and that are going to help you towards your goals, your family needs to realize that when you decide to take this on, you're going to be extremely selfish, and they need to make sure that they realize that so they can support you going forward. Because if you're causing conflict at home, nothing that you do is going to work.
Well, exactly. That's a great point, because I'd mentioned my wife, and I tell every competitor I have, I send them a very extensive online form that they have to fill out before we even start any coaching. And one of the first questions is, do you have support at home? Are the people that are in your daily sphere of influence there for you? Are they going to support you through this journey? You know, my wife, God bless her, you know, she's cooking chicken breasts for me and keeping me together. And, you know, when we go to the weigh-in, you know, I'm all depleted and kind of freaked out. She's literally guiding me to this place and checking the itinerary and pushing me here and telling me to get my crap together and, you know, motivating me. And if you don't have that system of support, and my children, my own children have been a great system of support to me. My clients, the people that I'm surrounded by, my workout partners understand what I'm up against, and they drive me and push me on days that I otherwise may not feel like I have it that day. So that's another important element too. If you've got a workout partner, say, are you ready for this? Are you ready to put everything into this that I am about to do? Or can you hang on while we do this for the next 8 months? So that's a great point, that your circle of influence, your family, your support system is critical in your success. You cannot do it all by yourself. That's for sure.
Nope, that's a fact. You sure can't. Okay. So the last question I have for you is one that I ask everybody that comes on my show. And that is, if you could change one thing about health and fitness on a global level, what would it be?
Wow. Well, I think I'm going to be like really disappointing. Wow, that is a great question. And I wish I had that one perfect, succinct answer that was just all motivating and inspiring, but I don't. I guess it's to say, question everything in terms of fitness and nutrition. Don't take anything for face value, to understand that everything in this industry, sadly, is driven by wealth and money and marketing and power, and that you need to really make sure that you're looking at everything through a very logical and rational microscope and willing to question everything that's put in front of you. And I don't know if that's even an answer to your question or not, but that's kind of always where I've been in nearly 30 years of doing this, is always navigating my path and making sure that I'm looking at the maps and I'm guiding myself and questioning every turn and every fork in the road, and learning from everything that I do, that I'm not just taking everything for face value. We talked about the dogma in the ketogenic world, in the ketogenic diet world. It exploded really in 2015, if you remember. That's when it really went nuts. And I know that because I've been doing it since 2010, quietly kind of going about my business, doing it on my own. And then it just fell into my lap in 2015 because of the popularity of it. And all of a sudden I was thrust into this world where people were wanting my help. And everybody took, we live in a culture now where information is being given in 143 characters or less on Twitter, where we don't look past the headline and dig deep into the content. And I would say, if you're going to really be involved in health and fitness, you've got to do your due diligence and research, just research, dig in, ask questions, seek the advice of others. Because people, I've got wealthy business people that I train that are so deep into their business that they've sought so many advisors and consultants, and they've worked so hard and looked down every avenue to be successful. But when it comes to building their best body and achieving their greatest level of health, it's just a cursory quick overview of, oh, I'll just try that program or that diet, or I'll do this, and I'll take that for face value. And I tell them, listen, if we're going to work together or you're going to do this, you better place as much importance on this as you do with anything else in your life, including your relationships, your business, because at the end of the day, what could be more important than your ability to breathe oxygen? I mean, you're trying to sustain yourself to be the very best you can be, and that extends into everything else in your life. Why wouldn't you place the greatest importance on that and question everything? Question authority, question the marketing, question the hype, question me. If I tell you something in my group or I tell you something on my YouTube video, call my ass out. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm not just going to dismiss you. I'm going to say, that's an excellent point, Tim. I will look into that, and I truly will. And if I've come across something where I've misled somebody or I may have been wrong, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to come right back on and say, hey guys, guess what I have discovered where I may have steered you wrong. Hey, let's try this approach. This makes some compelling evidence. So I guess it's a very broad stroke sort of an answer, but you've got to really take this world, this life, this endeavor of getting fit and getting healthy and make it paramount in your life and question everything that's coming at you and what you're being inundated with at every moment, because it gets overwhelming. So you've got to kind of pick apart every little, piece of straw in the haystack and differentiate what is being thrown at you and kind of pick things apart and separate them and decompartmentalize these things and kind of bring it all together and bring together a very rational, logical approach to everything. So that would be my advice. I mean, because we can't, as much as we try, we can't compete against, the billionaire pharmaceutical companies pushing their shit and all the misinformation in the medical community. There are some great doctors and surgeons out there, but there's also a lot of rampant misinformation in that world as well. And, if somebody with a PhD says something, we're like, oh, well, then it must be true. Well, that's not always true. The great Arthur Jones, who I respect as one of my mentors in strength training, said in his Arkansas accent, in terms of back in his day, exercise science and nutrition, he would often quote himself as saying, well, hell, in exercise nutrition or exercise physiology and nutrition, PhD just means piled high and deep in bullshit. That's what he would say. And I believe it. And that was hilarious. There's a little bit of truth to that, because, if you look at education, unfortunately, it becomes you're being spoon-fed this information to all of these students, and everybody accepts it as gospel, and they don't question it. And it's that one person that raises his hand and questions that and may come up with a different point of view that may make all the difference in the world or add to that realm of influence, and we create something special. Does that make sense? So
yes, absolutely.
It's not an answer. It's more of a philosophy or an ideology or just a way to look at it. But that would be what I would say. Right.
No, I would totally agree with you. And I do think that is an answer. So many people, they see stuff on the internet, or they read something in a magazine, or they see it on TV, and they just take it as gospel. You know what I'm saying? Because there are so many people out there that truly deep down inside, even if they're not doing anything about it, they want to be fit. They want to be healthy. But they either feel like they can't do it or they don't have a clue where to start. So along come these people that are just like, take this pill, do this diet, do these exercises, 30 days, it'll be amazing transformation. And it's all a big bunch of bullshit. And for people that buy into that type of stuff, you know, even if you're like, okay, well, this sounds like it's a good thing to do and I want to start down this path, I agree with you 100%. Question it. Question everything that comes at you, because some people just have ulterior motives, and that's why they're going to tell you what they tell you. You know, for somebody that has a garage full of snake oil, they're going to tell you any damn thing they can tell you to sell you that snake oil. That's what they're going to do. That's how they make their money. And unfortunately, in the health and fitness industry, it's rampant. It's rampant from doctors to pharmaceutical companies, and there's a lot of trainers out there that give guys like you and I a bad name. You know, and it's a struggle on a daily basis to overcome stuff like that.
Right.
So I think your answer was spot on, perfect.
Well, good. I think my last YouTube video was about how I don't use keto products. And that stirred up a little bit of quick controversy. And then when they watched it, they're like, oh, I see what he means now. You know, there's so much hype in marketing. You know, now if you're a company that sells a nutritional product or a nutritional supplement, you know, you sit in your boardroom meeting and the first thing that, you know, is said is, let's stamp the word keto on it and it'll sell, because that's the hot thing right now. They're not concerned with your health at Shape Magazine. They're not concerned with your health at GNC. They're concerned with their bottom line, their profits, and making sure their shareholders' stock prices just went up. I was watching, you know, sorry, GNC, but, you know, I was watching a commercial that just popped up on TV literally last night, where this girl, the GNC employee, is walking up to the camera and she says, uses the term coaches like me. Oh, you're a coach now, are you? Oh, well, I didn't know that. Well, I'm going to go run down to my local GNC and talk to that $9 an hour, 20-year-old coach who's going to tell me everything I need to know about transforming my body using their bullshit supplements. You know, my clients often ask me, how come you don't have a ton of supplements at the front of your gym? You could be making a killing. Sorry, I sleep at night. I'm not going to push a bunch of potions and powders. I'll say, hey, I like to use this protein powder. Here's a link where you can get it cheap. I take this small handful of nutritional supplements for health. Here's an Amazon link. It's cheapest there. And that's as far as I go. I'm just not going to be that guy. I want to use my knowledge, and I want to use, you know, my relationships with people to help build something special within them, not just throwing a damn powder at them. I just can't do that. So.
And the bottom line is, you know, by having the philosophy that you have, and I try to function, you know, I try to work with myself, that it's all about the helping the people. You know, one of my favorite motivational speakers, Tony Robbins, there was one of the seminars or something he was doing, and I heard this quote where he was talking about, don't focus, if you're in business, don't focus on making money. Focus on helping as many people as you possibly can. If that is your focus and you're not focused on the money, you won't have to worry about money, because people will be droving to you because they realize that you care about them, and you're putting forth that type of energy. And I firmly believe it, man. I firmly believe it. I'll tell you, man, right now, I started my business less than a year ago, and right now I've got 5 paying clients, but I've got probably 150 people that I'm helping online. And I'm not charging them for it. It's people that are unemployed or elderly people that, you know, there's one gentleman that contacted me because he knew that I had gone through the whole diabetes issue, and he had just found out he was type 2 diabetic, and he was morbidly obese, and he saw me in the dad bod group, and he's like, John, you've been where I've been, man, help me. And you know, in the 3 or 4 months that I've been working with him, he's shed like 50 pounds. His A1C has dropped from like a 6.7 to a 5.9. You know, that's the stuff that I live for. And I can tell, and I've known this for a long time, long before this podcast. I've known that you're the same way. I've followed so much of what you've done on YouTube and in the group and everything. Your workout programs in the trenches on your website. I've been following it all. And that's what made me so excited about doing this podcast with you, because I know we share a like mindset, and that's awesome to me.
Well, the honor is mine. So, I mean, And that's why I was so excited to come down here on a Saturday morning. Like I was up early, charged down here to the gym, which is 30 minutes away from my house, and was all excited. I was talking to my wife just minutes before, we got on, and I was talking a little bit about your history and how excited I was because this guy's a lot like me. And I know she said, how long does it last? And I said, I don't know. Some of his have been 30, 40 minutes or whatever. And I said, but I could definitely see this, going off the rails and us talking for like 2 hours. So I won't let that happen. I'll spare your viewers, but yeah, it's an honor to talk to you because we are so like-minded, and I've given far away more for free than I will ever charge for, happily. I'm still driving my 98 Jeep Wrangler with a factory cassette deck. So it's not about the money for me. I mean, if I can get from point A to point B to help someone, I don't care how luxurious the ride was to get there. Okay.
Right.
So this is why I do this. Right. I got into this because I fell in love with training for me. It transformed me. And then in the gym, people started to notice my transformation. So what was the obvious thing for them to do? Ask me what I was doing. Then I would relate, oh, well, I'm doing this. Let me show you. And then another light bulb moment. Hey, this is pretty damn fun. Maybe I could feed my kids and pay the bills doing what I love, telling people how to change their lives too. And I've never looked back. And now it's been it's definitely been 25 going on 26 years I've been doing this. So
that's amazing.
And I will do this until the day I die. And everybody knows this. My wife knows, my family knows, my clients know that I'll be the 80-year-old guy still training people in the gym, still pecking away online, talking to people on Skype saying, this is what you need to do. And they're going to see the same passion in that crazy old 90-year-old man that they do in this crazy 51-year-old man. And they saw it when I was a 31-year-old man. So it'll never change. And I know that's the same with you too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, my friend. Well, we're going to wrap this thing up. I sure do want to thank you for coming on the show. You have an absolute open invitation anytime you want to pop on to talk about some stuff. You got anything new going on, whatever the case may be, you know how to get a hold of me, and I'd be glad to have you.
Yeah, let's do it again, John. I really appreciate it, brother.